Dear viewers, welcome to another segment of Classical Greek Values and Modern Realities, sponsored by the Aristotle and Alexander Press. Today's topic, education of the young, a very, very important topic. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome again Harrison Sheppard.
Thank you, Dimitri. When we talk about education, we are talking about something that's different from training. The Greek word related to education is the word paideia, which means the education or the bringing up of a child. When we train someone, we give them the habits from some external source that enables them to do some task. We train the fingers to be able to play a piano. We train soldiers to be able to march in step. It's some external imposition that helps us accomplish some task or acquire some skill. Education, on the other hand, is not concerned with the impression of the external upon us, but, as the word means etymologically, drawing out who the person is. The realization of individual potential is what education is concerned about. In a play by Luigi Pirandello called 6 Characters in Search of an Author, the playwright Luigi Pirandello has the characters of a play claim to its author that they may be more real than the author because they stay always the same, while human beings change. This suggested to me an interesting question. Why is being as one wishes to be not the easy being that wishing is? The question answers itself. I wish not to be an idea of me. My wish is to be what me there is. Education aims to help us become the me we are. In the book, Too Much for Our Own Good, we talk at some length about the necessity of educating ourselves both to realize our individuality and understand our proper relationship to community. Let me quote from the book. Each of us is a perfectly unique individual, which makes us all, at least in that respect, perfectly alike. In the most fertile field, no one flower is born or blossoms or perishes precisely the way any other does. If we could look and measure closely enough, we would find that each blooming petal differs somewhat in shape and volume and even in scent from every other. There is no mortal being, such as you, dear reader, whose breath of life is exactly the same as any other. There is little mystery in this. The real mystery is that according to both the most informed modern science and many theologies, each and every one of us eternally unique beings had our origins in one primordial burst of light, which was then somehow formed into the stardust, from which each different spark of life has descended. There thus glows in each of us an infinite beauty of finite being, possessing the radiance of truly unique works of art, eternally different, yet eternally one. It is from this paradox that both our potential happiness and our discontent are born. The process of realizing our unique individuality while understanding what our obligations to community is the process of education. We have to ask ourselves, what kind of education do we want our children to have? Do we want to train our youth merely to be productive cogs in a technological and commercial machine? Or do we want to educate our youth in order that they may realize the best that is in them and understand, as the ancient Greeks well understood, the obligations they have if they are going to be truly themselves to the community, for we are all social beings? In some respects, the ancient Greeks had a much easier time with education. It was much simpler. Though we are much more privileged than the ancient Greeks materially, we are much poorer than they were in our understanding of the necessity for for the cultivation of the spiritual dimensions of our lives. We need to recover this focus in our education of the young toward an understanding of the realization of their best capacities. We need to have a recovered understanding of what the word paideia means, the raising up of a child into adulthood. In fact, in the 1980s, Mortimer Adler, one of the great exponents of the great books method of teaching, and of Philhellene in some respects because he was absolutely devoted to Aristotle, made a proposal called the Paideia Proposal, which proposed that American education change to be much more unified in terms of working toward the development of individual skills rather than simply training and information about matters which may seem relevant at the time, but actually have little enduring relevance to the child when he or she becomes an adult. We need to recover that classical Greek value of an understanding of education as that which helps a child become the man or woman, now the man or woman, that they can best be, rather than simply being trained to play a part in our commercial society. Too Much for Our Own Good is very much concerned with the education of the young, with a cultivation of a new understanding of what it means to be a success in the 21st century. This is a classical Greek value that we badly need to recover in the midst of our technical and complex modern realities.
Harrison, by the time a modern child reaches high school, he or she knows much more about science, history, or mathematics than the ancient Greeks, or more than Aristotle would have known.
Yes.
And today we have algebra, chemistry, and atomic physics that did not exist in ancient Greece. So is there anything that the young people today can learn from the ancient Greeks?
That's really the key question, Dmitry. I think we are, in some respects, overwhelmed with knowledge of special sciences and special disciplines. We're very privileged with respect to the amount of knowledge young people can gain, not only from their reading in school, but from the internet. But we are deluged with information and elements of training that have only to do with the external relationships. We have very little that's really being done anymore to cultivate what were the classical liberal arts, the kind of education that really formed leadership in the Western world for centuries. The Aristotelian idea, pan metron ariston, should certainly be applied to our educational institutions. What we can learn from the ancient Greeks and from ancient Greek philosophy and ethics is the necessity in modern education to emphasize more the need to develop the potential and the capacities of each individual child rather than merely deluging them with information and training that may have very little relevance to who they are as individuals and to what their duties may be as mature individuals to the wider community. This was certainly understood as one of the classical Greek values in education.
Once again, Harrison, thank you so much for being with us. Next week, we're going to talk about what is knowledge and Plato. Do not forget, ladies and gentlemen, this series is sponsored by the Aristotle and Alexander Press. Until next week, thank you very much.